I am not a psychopath. I'm a high-functioning sociopath. Do your research. We all know and love the Sherlock line, so we decided to take his advice and actually research about what is the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath. Find out all the details here and make Sherlock proud with Big Factz' latest video, Psychopath versus Sociopath. Subscribe to our channel and hit the notifications button below for more videos like this. Psychopaths and sociopaths are two of the most popular mental disorders in our society, mainly due to Hollywood, but also because of a lot of serial killers. They fall into these two categories. Basically, society matched up with Hollywood and made these two terms very, very famous. Actually, they are famous to the point of being pop psychology terms. In actual academic psychology, both these kinds of folks are classified under antisocial personalities. Actually, psychology and sociology are not mentioned extensively in psychological research, which creates a lot of confusion between them. Of course, they are both antisocial disorders, so they are bound to have some similarities. Like this, both psychopaths and sociopaths have a hard time caring for people's safety and rights because of their actions. Yeah, they do sound like politicians. They just don't care if someone is starving or dying. Other common traits between them is manipulation. This is actually the central feature to both of these personalities. Although, quite contrary to popular belief, just because someone is a sociopath or a psychopath does not mean that they are violent. This image is made by Hollywood. In reality, the antisocial part of the personality is the only diagnosis for their label, not their murdering abilities. Do you want to find out if you're a psychopath? Here's how you can self-diagnose. If you share 3 or more of the following traits, then you might be a psychopath, and you should definitely get checked out. 1. You regularly break the law. 2. You constantly lie or deceive people. 3. You are prone to violence or anger. 4. You are super impulsive and hate planning. 5. You don't care for others' safety. 6. You are irresponsible and often do not meet financial obligations. 7. You can't feel guilt or regret towards your actions. You can even check if your teen is a psychopath because these symptoms present before the age of 15 in almost all cases. Despite what Hollywood wants you to believe, psychopaths are not made. They are born. Hence, the whole ordeal is genetic in nature, but some childhood trauma can make it more intense. It is mainly related to the physical part of the brain, as research has shown that psychopaths have underdeveloped parts of the brain that thought to control emotion and impulse. Psychopaths have a really hard time forming emotional connections with people. Instead, they have artificial and shallow relationships with people who they can manipulate for their own benefit. To them, people are like pawns to be played to obtain certain goals. So when they hurt the people in their lives, they don't feel any guilt or remorse for doing so. That doesn't mean that they are easy to detect. Often, psychopaths are extremely charming and trustworthy. They hold steady jobs and have loving families. But inside, the story is entirely different. They only look out for themselves. When they commit a crime, they only watch out for the consequences that affect them. They painfully plan out every single activity to ensure that they don't get caught and have backup plans for everything that can go wrong. One thing Hollywood got right: psychopaths make talented criminals. You might know a lot of psychopaths because of pop culture. Ted Bundy, for example. The crimes that he committed put psychopaths in a different light. It doesn't matter that 30 years have passed since his executions. The way he never felt guilt is what fascinates people. For the longest time, Bundy had puzzled people. How did he murder so many people while he attended college, built a career, and even had a long-term relationship? How did he manage to kill and assault at least 30 women in a few years? These questions led psychologists to explore Ted Bundy's weird, charming personality. Truly, this is where the fascination with psychopaths started, and fictional psychopaths became more fascinating. People like Bundy represent pure evil in our minds, and we just cannot look away. Just like we cannot look away from a horror movie, even when we are scared. Due to the popularity of Bundy's case, a lot of psychologists were determined to provide a model by which any other psychopath could be identified. One particular psychologist was able to demonstrate a dimensional trait model with 5 factors that could be used, diagnose, and describe people like Bundy. But if people already knew about psychopaths, then why did they need Bundy for profiling? It is because he was a new kind of psychopath, so much so that people were completely blindsided when he was outed as a serial killer. He failed to have some features that previously everyone was sure that psychopaths had. So as a serial killer and psychopath of that era, was Bundy unique? Definitely. The most fascinating part of his personality was how charming he was. Many wondered, how could he be a killer and a clean-cut law student if he was mentally ill? Not just this, he was very clever. He was able to trick officials twice, and he did so in ingenious ways. So these facts are captivating, and Bundy may have challenged previous psychologists, but today researchers say that Bundy was no different from a classic serial killer that might be profiled today. He was for a long time emotionally stable, and that allowed him to be incredibly and successfully deceptive. The classic phrase that exists in psychopathy is that they were a mask of sanity. That means they're able to hide that they want to rip off your skin pretty easily. This is part of why psychopaths are so scary. At any given moment, your workplace could have a serial killer, and they are impossible to catch because quite often, their victims have no personal connections to them. When Bundy was arrested, he was given a mental health evaluation. He was interviewed by the father of psychology, Harvey Cleckley himself, and he effectively diagnosed him as a psychopath. Psychologists formed a pretty comprehensive definition for psychopaths. After that, as stated by University of Kentucky News, the definition states that psychopathy refers to social predators who charm, manipulate, and ruthlessly plow their way through life, completely lacking in conscience and feeling for others. They selfishly take what... Again, they kind of sound like politicians. But to be honest, Ted Bundy was also a sadist and someone prone to necrophilia. He had the following traits. 1. Antagonism. This means to be deceptive and arrogant. 2. Extroversion. To be convincing and dogmatic. 3. High conscientiousness. Skilled and organized. 4. Very, very charming. Is it possible to be a combination of all these and yet fail? Absolutely. But Ted Bundy was a successful psychopath, a person who indulged in all of his desires all the while tricking the law for a long time. The third point, conscientiousness, is what makes or breaks the deal. It determines who becomes a successful serial killer. So this was in-depth study into psychopathy. What about sociopaths? Are they equally or dangerous and hard to point out? And how are they different from psychopaths? Researchers believe that the first difference is the cause. Psychopathy is inevitable and cannot be prevented because it is genetic. Sociopathy, on the other hand, is the result of environmental factors like a traumatic childhood or teenagehood. But the differences don't stop there. Sociopaths tend to be more impulsive and erratic in their actions, and while they find it difficult to form attachments to others emotionally, they may actually have connections. Why is why Sherlock has one friend and Ted Bundy had none. And unlike psychopaths, most sociopaths don't hold down long-term jobs or talk to people outside of their own circle. When a sociopath decides to engage in criminal behavior, they do so in a very unplanned and impulsive manner without giving any thought to the consequences or risk that might affect them. They become impatient easily and burst out in anger often. Naturally, this increases the chances of detection, so a sociopath is easier to detect than a psychopath. An example of a sociopath is, of course, Sherlock Holmes, but also Joker from The Dark Knight. Now for the real question, who is more dangerous? But psychopaths and sociopaths are a danger to society in some ways because they try to live a normal life without getting a diagnosis. But psychopathy is a way more dangerous disorder because they experience little to no guilt for their actions. They also do a little trick which is known as the ability to separate themselves from their actions. So it doesn't matter to Bundy if he killed someone or he heard that someone killed a woman. It's all the same for him. But again, not all the people diagnosed as sociopaths or psychopaths are violent, although we do admit it is quite common. The best way to prevent another Ted Bundy from killing women is to diagnose psychopaths and sociopaths in their childhood. Clues are definitely available because almost every serial killer had similar patterns of behavior as a child. Basically, they violate people's rights or safety and break rules quite often. These kind of actions are put under conduct disorders. After extensive study on both of these sides, do you think that you might be able to detect a psychopath or a sociopath? Comment below and we'll pin the best one. Like this video and share it with everyone you know. Subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. This was Big Factz, bombifying your mind, one video at a time.